The creator of Claude Code just told us to delete our Claude.md files. He also explained how he gets Claude Code to run autonomously for weeks at a time, and he even claimed that Claude is no longer prompt injectable. He dropped some great advice in a recent talk that honestly might change how you use AI coding agents for the better. But on the other hand, you're likely going to seriously object to some of that advice. So let's go through what he said and cut through the hype. This talk took place the day after the launch of Opus 5, and the interviewer started by asking, what can Opus 5 do that the previous models couldn't? He said that one of the real unique behaviours of these newer frontier models is that they can run for very long periods of time. And when combined with auto mode in Claude, it can go for days or weeks, and it just won't stop until it needs to. And he's saying here that these long-running tasks require no other scaffolding, no goal command, no orchestration. And in fairness, I think these models are getting better and better at running over longer periods without us needing those outer harnesses or orchestration scripts. But it's very use case dependent, and of course Boris Cherny works for Anthropic, and he has a practically unlimited token budget, so you have to look at things through the right lens here. Next up, he said that the model does not seem to be prompt injectable anymore, which if you take a step back just seems like a completely ridiculous statement. What he's saying here is that they're using 3 layers as a mechanism. First, we have a well-aligned model over the last few years of research. Then they have a prompt injection classifier running across all traffic. And then on top of that, they have the auto mode classifier, which works quite well to stop any dangerous commands. And with this, he says, with these 3 layers, we just cannot demonstrate prompt injection anymore. Like, Claude Code is likely getting more and more resistant to prompt injection over time, but to imply that Claude Code is now magically impervious to it is obviously ridiculous. Feel free to drop a comment below with your thoughts on that. Then he said that when Opus 5 shipped, they deleted over 80% of Claude Code's system prompt. And Boris has said many times before that every time a new model comes out, they delete and rewrite a big chunk of the codebase of Claude Code, because behavior tuned for one model often does not transfer to the next one at all. A lot of what was in there existed to correct for things that the model should have done but wasn't able to do. And they've only retained the prompting that is still necessary. And he actually gave 2 actionable tips for how you can alter the system prompting of Claude Code. So for example, you can just type Claude --system prompt and then set whatever system prompt you want. I have a ridiculous one here saying you speak in Klingon, and let's see what happens. And there we go, I just said hi, and now it's responded back with a mixture of Klingon and English. So while that's not exactly a useful system prompt, it does very quickly demonstrate that we can affect the output. The second one I had not seen before is this environment variable Claude Code simple equals 1. And if you set it and run Claude, it strips back the system prompting and the prompting of the tooling. He says they use this internally as an ablation to work out whether the prompting is actually pulling its weight. Boris explained their process for how they constantly rework their codebase. And they use this process called ablation. So they delete all of the prompting behind the scenes and then bring it back bit by bit, measuring what each line actually does. And then they do the exact same thing for the tools. This is not a unique Anthropic idea. I talked about an interesting ablation study in a recent video on coding harnesses on our channel. You can watch that in the video linked below. So the interviewer asked Boris, should everybody building AI products be following this ablation process? And he said 100%. But in reality, for a lot of people, the answer is going to be a lot more nuanced than that. For people who just use Claude Code, then it's the same advice. Like every 6 months, delete your Claude.md file, delete your skills, delete your hooks, and see what the model does. But you often just need to be quite careful about what you're deleting. You need to make sure you're not hauling dead weight around in your prompting and in meta prompting frameworks and harnesses and whatever else you're using. But you also need to keep any enforcement that you have within your code base and your workflows. If you've got specific hooks doing specific jobs, the ones that block destructive commands, deny rules, or any compliance or auto constraints and things like that, these are not just instructions that the models are going to outgrow. They are enforcement policies, and if you need to keep them in, then keep them in. The next points from the talk were pretty interesting. In the video, he talked about the concept of product overhang, which is when today's model can actually do far more than your shipped product lets it express. And then hobbling is when the product is actively getting in the way. He talked about the origin story of Claude Code itself. He started on it about 18 months to 2 years ago in the Sonnet 3.5 era, which he describes now as a pretty terrible coding model. And look at what the coding products of that moment were doing. It was just single line autocomplete, multi-line autocomplete, read-only chat about your code base. This was now what we would class as old school GitHub Copilot type assistance. And his read was that the model could already write entire functions and entire files, and no coding agents on the market were really letting the model just do what it could do. So they stripped away the UI, the scaffolding, gave Claude Code the simple possible harness, which is full terminal access, and let it write a whole file, and so it was no longer constrained by UIs and IDEs. And let's take a step back here. That was a genius move by him and his team at Anthropic, and he has experience in delivering on this concept and reducing product overhang and reducing hobbling. So technically he's likely correct, but he also works at Anthropic, and this is likely just a great way to further fuel the AI hype train. And this is where I'll add something that he didn't say and he's unlikely to say, which is that the complete opposite of all of this is also true, and is often the case. We have product overhang where the model is ahead and the product itself is a limiting factor. But in many cases, the issue is the opposite, where the product is ahead, where the developer is trying to get the model to do something and it just is not capable of doing it, such as where you have a demo that only works on the happy path, which happens a lot, or where a workflow needs a large amount of human in the loop or review of its outputs, or where you have a product or system where you're trying to get the model to perform long-running tasks, but the thing is just drifting in the wrong direction. A really important skill at the moment is to try to quickly identify which side of that spectrum does your product currently land on. Because if it's in the underhang territory, your project might need way more scaffolding and not less. You might absolutely need to build a very deliberate, domain-specific harness for your particular tasks. A really interesting point he made in this video was that a common failure mode when people are using Claude Code is that they overspecify. People are writing, do this, but do it this way and this way and this way. And for modern models, he says that's actively counterproductive. I've got a software development background, and I have to admit, I am definitely prone to this. I just have an idea in my head of something and how it should be done, and I'm too prescriptive on that particular idea, and it may actually constrain the AI. I don't like saying it, but there are some times where somebody with no coding knowledge might be kind of ignorant to a process and actually manage to get a better result than a developer because they just ask it to do something, whereas a developer might be stuck in the weeds and be too close-minded. That's definitely not always the case. I think it's generally far better to have the knowledge to understand software architecture, but we are living in kind of strange times in that regard, and it varies an awful lot based on the projects and the use cases. So his main advice here was that instead of over-specifying and instead of being over-prescriptive with your prompting, is to define the task, define the guardrails, define the exit criteria, when it should stop, and then just let it work away. And he's saying that that would not have worked 6 months ago, but it works today. He gave a recent example that you might have heard about, which is that Claude Code runs on Bun, the open source JavaScript runtime. Bun was written in Zig, a low-level systems language where you have to manage memory by hand, so it's quite easy to end up with leaks. Earlier models were being used to fizz that codebase, hunting for leaks one at a time. Then someone on the team started throwing Claude the prompt to just rewrite it at every new model generation. Fable was the first that could do it properly, and also likely Opus 5 could do it as well. So prompting, a dynamic workflow, and 11 days of runtime, and the entire codebase went from Zig to Rust. That's a huge codebase, and he reckoned a human team would have needed well over a year to do it, and that would not surprise me that much. The dynamic workflows feature was used throughout this process, and I honestly think this is a really outstanding feature within Claude Code, which really results in significant improvements in its capabilities. And throughout this, it spun up huge amounts of agents over 11 days and burned through humongous volumes of tokens in the process. So he did admit this was not a one-shot process, that steering did happen throughout the process, and that test suites were a really, really important factor in making this successful. They already had really solid test suites for Claude Code to be able to test against, so it had tangible information to feed back into the loop. And these verification and feedback mechanisms are absolutely vital when it comes to long-running agents, otherwise they can just steer off in a completely wrong direction. So we pointed out that job titles keep cycling. We have prompt engineer, context engineer, and this year we've gone between loop engineer and graph engineer, and there'll probably be another one next week. He tries to sidestep all of those titles, and he says that the key is to give it a task that's slightly too hard and make it possible for Claude to verify its own work. And he says that that's the single most important thing that people do not get right. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And it's one of the real reasons why these long-running agents will often just be very unsuccessful for people without proper feedback mechanisms. The interviewer asked Boris, how do you become a top 1% Claude Code user? And he answered, maybe don't listen to the LinkedIn influencers, which is pretty funny, but also there is a grain of truth to it. Like if you're stuck in tutorial hell and you're stuck in just constantly watching out for every single unique new trick in Claude Code, you'll probably get a much better return on your time by just trying to use agentic coding in your project, see where it works, see where it doesn't, be a little bit open-minded about giving it tasks that you think might be a little bit too hard, and then adjust from there. And that totally depends on your use case. Projects can vary hugely. For example, you could have personal internal software and internal dashboards with Claude Code, and they could work just fine by just one-shotting them with Claude Code. But on the opposite end, you have critical systems that you absolutely need to be a lot more prescriptive about and very careful about code changes. There's quite a big spectrum between those two, and how you work with AI coding agents will of course very much vary depending on those use cases. So the Claude Code desktop app is built on Electron, and Boris wanted to see what a native version would feel like, and he ran the whole thing through Claude Tag, which is Claude running inside Slack. At the time of running the interview, Claude Code had been running for a little over 2 weeks, 14 or 15 days, and it was still going. But the reality for the rest of us is that a 2-week Claude Code run is not a casual experiment. Burning through that amount of tokens for a fortnight on a speculative run is not cheap, to say the least. It is easy for him to run these kinds of experiments because he has practically unlimited tokens. But even if you had a Claude Max 20x plan, you're going to get nowhere near this volume of work. Also, these plans are subsidizing token cost. There was an experiment posted online that got a lot of reach to say that a Claude Max 20 plan, which might be $200 a month, could give you as much as $8,000 in equivalent API credits. So these multi-week long-running tasks, if you're an organization paying for API credits, this could burn through tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in API fees, especially when running frontier models. And you need strong models to be able to properly work and orchestrate on difficult tasks over long horizons. There's also a real technical objection underneath all of this, which is that long-running agents can very easily drift. So small deviations can compound very, very quickly. And by day 9 or 10 in a process like this, you could be a very long way from where you meant to be without anybody really noticing. So when getting into more detail about how he's actually orchestrating this volume of work over long periods of time, he goes into the distinction between dynamic workflows and loops and routines. So with dynamic workflows, you just say to use a workflow and Claude writes and triggers it. Under the hood, they use the Bun runtime as a sandbox and let Claude orchestrate a large number of agents inside it. So it could fan out a big batch of sub-agents and then have a smaller batch that verifies it, then fan out again, and so on. And honestly, if you have not used dynamic workflows within Claude Code, then I would highly recommend you do, because it is a super, super feature, but it absolutely burns through tokens. One workflow that you might think should be fairly contained might still burn through millions and millions of tokens. Even if the workflow is efficiently written, that's often just the cost of getting serious work done with AI. The second mechanism here we have are loops and routines. So these are really just cron jobs, either locally for loops or in the cloud for routines. And when people are talking about loop engineering, they're either talking about these kind of cron jobs, or they're talking about goal-based loops, which are either while loops or dynamic workflow kind of setups where you want an agent to perform a long-running task. I talked about loop engineering in another video linked in the description if you want to dig more into that. So Boris has been quoted a lot by saying that coding is now solved. And to his credit, he kind of qualified that a bit within this talk, probably based on the amount of pushback that he's gotten from it from the developer community. He said that coding is solved for the kind of coding that he does. It's not solved for everybody. And he names types of code bases where it still struggles with. So these are deep systems code bases, distributed systems, in the weeds UI verification, and of course the list goes on quite a bit here. Coding is kind of solved for one-shot apps and internal tools and very contained ones, and very much not solved for a lot of other use cases. And the last question was, what should computer science students still learn the hard way? And he thinks learn not just the computer science, but learn how to apply it. So that's things like talking to users, design sense, building startups and products, business sense, and data science. And this gets to the point of functional systems requirements and design and architecture, being able to specify a system well enough that an agent can then go and build it. And that's the part that probably will not get automated away, because it's where you decide what should exist in the first place. And that's a big reason we've gone so deep in our AI Architects course in our community. Boris Cherny is clearly a very, very smart guy. He's an extreme power user of Claude Code, and we can learn huge amounts from him. I often come out of listening to Boris Cherny interviews with some pretty actionable insights and some experiments and potential mindset shifts for how I can go about agentic coding Some of these things are just reminders, such as to give Claude Code more difficult problems and be more open-ended, and try to take my software engineering hat off just for a moment and see what it can actually do without me constraining the thing. Some of what Claude Code can do now, especially with dynamic workflows, are things we would not have even really been able to imagine this time last year. But of course, you absolutely should not take everything he's saying at face value. His comment about Claude Code not being prompt injectable anymore is probably not going to age well. And of course, he works for Anthropic. Claude Code is his baby, he has huge incentives to push it, and he has a practically unlimited token budget. He could burn through tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equivalent API fees and just call that an experiment. He's given some great advice in this talk, but of course, when you're watching it, make sure to take some parts with a pinch of salt. If you want to learn how to design and build expert-level AI systems from the ground up, then make sure to check out our AI Architects course in our community. We've got over 50 lessons covering everything from agentic retrieval to harness engineering. You can launch faster with our starter apps, and you can join a global network of AI builders. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.